All right, well, we're gonna go snowboarding tomorrow, and it's gonna be my wife and my daughter, and we're gonna go to the bunny hill over to the Magic Carpet at one of the ski resorts here, and I have to get my wife's score that she got at a thrift store. It was 40 bucks, but it's a Rome SOS. So I think it's a great board. It'd be good for her to learn on. It's not a split board, so it'll be a lot more adaptable, more stable, stuff like that. And the base will be in a lot better condition than her other one. It had actually a storage wax on it. But in the meantime, the only binding setup she had was off of her split board. So I have to take all this apart and fit it on the board for her stance. And once again, I can't stress this enough. The Decine kit, okay? Right there, Decine. I know, it's kind, especially when you need tools. This is in it. It has all your drivers to do everything snowboard related, okay? It has all your waxes, your edge tuner, everything. All you need to be able to fix your stuff. All you got to do if you wanted to add anything more is put some P-Tex and a small torch in here and you're good to go, okay? But other than that, these things work wonders. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this and get her board all set up. And then after that, when I'm pulling mine out, since I already know my stance, I'll go ahead and clip back in and I'll show you what my stance is. But also I'll show you how to figure out how to set a stance for somebody who has never been on a snowboard before. All right, so I'll be right back. I'm going to go ahead and get started on this. I'll see you guys in a sec.
I understand what you're holding on, but okay. Yours is slick too. I can't get it to do what you do.
You have to lift your weight up a little bit and switch it. Close.
It's a practice thing, right?
It's a big board for you.
It is a big board for me, but you're a big guy.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's get this set up, huh? All right, well, I got to put a setup together, and unfortunately, I can't use the board that I really want to because I need a lot of base work done on it. So instead, I'm going to pull out my super old 174 Maverick. It's an MLY, and as you can see, this is super old. There's not that many of these around anymore, and there's nothing really wrong with the base, so I'm going to be able to good to go. Plus, it's super lightweight, so I don't have to worry about a heavy board when I'm trying to teach. But speaking of teaching, so when you have a snowboard down like this, if you have any skateboarding experience whatsoever, that's usually the stance you go with. If a person does not have any skateboarding experience whatsoever, a lot of people swear by this. I kind of am iffy about it. It really just depends. You have to talk to the person and make sure they're all right with it before you even attempt this, because it is rather rude if you don't. It's called the push test. And it's when you come up behind somebody and you shove them from behind, it's whatever foot goes forward to stop them from falling is whatever foot is supposed to go in the front. Now, for me, that doesn't apply. My right foot is the foot that I would stop with. I use that in the back, not the front. So judge it how you want. You know, surfing, I know I use the back more. Snowboarding, I definitely use the back more. The front is more like I start my turn. But anyway, back to the point. Once you've determined that and you've determined whether they're left foot forward or right foot forward, then you have to tell them to basically get on the board with a little bit of forward momentum with how they would feel most comfortable going forward from this stance right here. And most people want to come running at it. That's not a good idea. Okay? From right here, you jump on and you see where you're at. All right? Now, for some people, it's that. Okay, which is usually a 15 negative and a 15 positive. In snowboarding terms, if you're a snowboarder, you'll definitely understand that. If not, your forward foot is a positive, your back foot is a negative on the number scale that are on the pucks for adjusting your bindings, and I'll show you that when we get ready to put everything on these. But, me personally, I am a 15 forward in the rear, and I am a 30 forward in the front. I am a high aggressive alpine 90s style snowboard rider. Okay, I do not run switch. So this is where I go. All right. So we've already determined what my wife is going to do. So now we're going to go ahead and get started. Now that I know that this thing slides really, really well. As you can see, it's super old, but it is lightweight, and it's still pretty switchy. All right, especially for traditional camber. We'll get into that later in later videos. All right. So you guys take care, and I'm going to start setting this up. And when I get one of them dialed in, I'll show you what the numbers mean and what you're looking at. Also, what we're looking at when it comes to taking bindings that you're going to use for a snowboard off of split board setups. All right, so we'll be right back. All right, well, we've got one binding set up, and if you watch my other split boarding video, when I was getting these bindings prepared, I had this straps that I had to adapt. Well, we're going back to these, so you'll have to refer back to that video if you wanted to see how that exchange was done. But in the meantime, on the inside here, we're going to do how you remove one of these split board plates. It's kind of just like doing it off of a snowboard, but you have to be careful because they do have these flat M-lock style screws, the plates back here, that go into the volley skid plate that locks into the pucks of the skid or of the split board. So when you take these off, you just take them off like you normally would. And then the pucks, as you can see, I didn't put these back in because these are completely different. They don't really, I didn't like how they seated on the snowboard, so I switched pucks. But if you look closely at these, they have the degrees on them. And there's an arrow on the inside of the binding right here on the side. On the very inside of the binding, it's going to be impossible to see, but you'll see the arrow on this puck. The arrow on the binding is 3 clicks off to the front, and that's how ride bindings used to be set up. So this right here is your chart, and you tilt it wherever the arrow lines up on this is where you're going. So if you're turning your back binding this way, you're going negative, and most people will go negative 15 degrees. So this will stay 0 there, and they'll turn their binding arrows to 15 degrees here on the side. Other bindings like my Burtons right here, I love these. These are my Exiles. And yes, they've got skulls on them. They're awesome. I love these. These have saved me so many times. I run a toe cup on it because I believe in optimal toe control when you're snowboarding. But as you can see on here, these plates, these Burton plates aren't marked. And the reason these Burton plates are not marked is because if you look really closely on the inside of this binding, and you can tell, you can see the numbers in here. Those are where these arrows line up. Whatever board, you're going to go negative or positive. However, now me, I run both of them forward, so I'm positive in the rear, 15 degrees, which puts me 15 degrees forward on my boot. And then in the very front foot, I run a 30 degree, so I pitch the binding forward 30 degrees. So I'm positive 30, positive 15, and that's my 90s aggressive alpine stance. So other than that, I'm going to get this all squared up, and then we're going to see how this fits, and then I'll get my stuff rigged up, and we're going to hit the mountain tomorrow, so there'll be a lot of footage and stuff like that. Hopefully I can get the GoPro going and get everything charged up, get some memory cards emptied out so that I can get some good footage on them. So you guys take care, and I will see you next time. If you have any questions on any of this, snowboard related, splitboard related, and if you didn't notice, you see all that? That's ski wax. Yes, I know how to do repairs and stuff like that, okay? So if you have any questions on how to fix your stuff or anything like that, drop it in the comments. Other than that, you guys take care. Hit that subscribe if you're interested. Drop a like on the video if you liked it. Share it with a friend if you would, please. And by the way, don't forget that notification bell, all right? You guys, I'll see you next time. All right, well, I've got this almost to the point where I can take it off. There's one screw left, so I'm going to go ahead and take the decaying tool that comes in that kit that I keep bragging about. I'm telling you, you got to get one of these if you snowboard, because you can fix everything. I've got a whole snowboarding bag I haven't even shown. Replacement parts, you know, for certain things, stuff like that. Things that I would carry in my bag, stuff like that, just in case when I'm out on the mountain. But I just take these out and I put them back together and I bag them up in a Ziploc, and then I put them in my snowboard bag because it has a pouch that holds all my tools and whatever equipment and all kinds of stuff like that. And then these just basically pop off. Now keep in mind, this is the standard plate right here, okay? And then they have these spacers that they add right there on some of them. The hard boot setups don't have that. And speaking of hard boot, I'll bring up one here in a second that'll really blow your mind, because I already showed you the one in my other video that I referred to earlier. And that one is actually really cool because that one shows the hard boot setup for the split board. I'll show you one that goes for standard snowboards, and you're gonna be like, wow, okay? But anyway, this red part is actually part of the binding, so you're gonna wanna save that as much as possible. And like I said, I'm not gonna use these ride plates because I don't like the way they look and I don't like the way they mount. So instead, if I can find my other one, there it is. I'm gonna go ahead and use these. And like I said, real quick, I'll show you this because now you'll be able to see it because it's not in. If you come in real close, you'll be able to see that arrow right in there on the binding, okay? That arrow tells you where the side arrow is gonna line up for 0 degrees. You match the arrows, it's 0, okay? So for this binding, this is the front binding, the left foot, she's gonna be left foot forward. You're gonna put this in, and if you rotate the arrows like that, it's gonna go positive. For the back binding, you go this way and it'll go negative. If you go this way, it'll go positive, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop this in here and line up my arrows. I'm gonna make sure I zero it out. And then right off the bat, because I know what I'm doing, and I've been doing this for a long time, I'm gonna pitch about 5 clicks will be 13 to 15 degrees forward in the front. Because now if you notice the way the binding sits like that, okay, that's the way it's going to sit on the board. So if I just keep that just like that without any issues, I can bring the board up right here and I can drop this. You see the screws right there on the board, and I don't know if we're going to be able to take that sticker up. I don't think it's really going to matter, but no, it doesn't want to come up. The Goodwill, they got great stickers. Little bit of water, hot water, stuff like that. Anyway, but the screws line up this way. It's a 4-bolt pattern. These Burton plates are universal for almost every binding they make back in the day. I don't know what they got now, but I'm going to line that up right there centered, and you can see how that pushed this binding forward like that. So all I have to do is go into my other bag that has the screws, and I can go ahead and mount this binding on that setup right there. But there is one more thing that I have to do for the split board setup, and that is I have to remove the pin for the puck and the slip plate for the split board. This pin right here, try not to take that all the way out and see if we can do it how I did the last one. Come on. Come on. There we go. And depending on how they put these into your bindings, depends on how easily they come off, honestly. So there's no foul ups whatsoever. I'm instantly going to tighten that back up because I don't want any problems with this binding. Okay. There. And I still have my degree right there. So that should be the perfect lineup for her. If not, what you do is you put one screw in it and then you test it. And if not, you give it another click and you test it and see if it lines up with where they initially jumped onto the board for comfort, okay? And then that's how you adjust the setup. We're pretty sure this is it. So I'm gonna set this off to the side here for a second. And I'm gonna show you, just real quick, this is the old Volley system. I don't know what they have now. I haven't paid attention to split boarding or nothing. All I know is they're showing up everywhere. It seems like everybody dropped out of it, and it's a massive bummer because it is one of the best ways to get out and see everything out in the mountains and be able to snowboard out. And they even do it, you know, they even have touring setups for skis too. So it's not just snowboard isolated. It's just snowboard is more involved like this. Skis are a different setup. I have a set of skis, but I do not have a touring setup, so I can't explain it to you unless I go to a store and show you. But anyway, these go right through, these slip on the puck like that, and these go right through, and then they lock just like that, so that you have that locking system right there, and that's basically what you do. So I'm going to go grab the screws real quick. I'll be right back, and I'm going to put this on the other board so I can show you how this locks on onto the board, and then we're going to bolt this down, and then I'm going to put my setup together since I pretty much showed you how this works. I'll show you one of the ways I mount my bindings, because it has the numbers and you can actually see the numbers for reference on another set of bindings so that you're not all confused. But other than that, it's mostly just going to be slipping this onto the plate, anchoring this, making sure it's good, putting my board together, and then we're out of here. All right, so I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, so real quick, as you can see, hopefully the sun's not blinding you. You can see how this one's already set up. This stance was a little bit farther, but this was a home kit that they do. They buy all the stuff from Volet, they send in a board, they cut the board down the middle, they line it all up, they mount up all the hardware, and that's what you get. So whatever stance this was, pretty much is what it is. But these plates, like I said, I took the pin out, they just slide right over. So when you mount your binding with those screws on there, you just slip that on just like that, and you always put this pin facing down like this, and then bring it through and lock it, and this goes tying to whatever setup you have, whatever binding, whatever, so you never lose the pin to lock your plates. That's basically all that's involved with this. Other than that, I'm just going to go ahead and mount this like I said, and I'm going to get my bindings, and I'll show you how to mount a binding with numbers and all the rest of the stuff so you don't get confused, okay? All right, we'll be right back. Well, I had a honest change of heart. I was looking at the MLY and I realized I only have 3 screws because I've been running my Burton for so long, so I'm going to go ahead and run my Burton. But I'm going to show you real quick the core damage right here. I've got a core shot here that busted back open, and I got another one back up here. It's a good thing I'm only teaching and I'm not going riding. Otherwise, that would be hard to manage on groomers and stuff like that, especially on low aspect or low angles. But anyway, if you look right in here, you see how mine's marked at 30 degrees. Right there, and how forward it is on the front, and it's a three bolt pattern. So the back one, as you can see, I have it set for 15 degrees right there, and the screws are already in it just because that's where I set them. So honestly, you don't really want to do that too much unless you know what you're doing. But also, there's one more thing I want to show you before I put this on, and I'll show you how to put them on too. But if you look at the rings, if you haven't snowboarded in a while and you forget where your stance was, look where your rings are, and your ring that's most heavily stained and used is usually the one that you were using last. Just so you know, I mean, I've done a couple of different trial and errors, seeing if I like my back foot forward a little bit more, centering up in the board. I like to sit in the back seat of it all out, so I get all the way down here. So that ring is a lot bigger, which is more heavily used on this side. So I know how to go ahead and set my binding back up. But for this right here, the best thing you can honestly do is don't leave your screws in it, because that just makes it complicated. If you're new to this, it'll jump your degrees and you'll lose your mind. So I put these up right away. Actually, I could put that one down because it's not my way. But I have that set at 15 degrees, and like I said, these click and lock just like that. Okay, and oh wow, I'm gonna have to get a new plate. This one's busted. Wow, it's a good thing I caught that. Look at that. That must have been from the last time I got rowdy. I got some footage coming your way of some old stuff on this board and some woods and stuff like that. I'm gonna add some music to it and everything so it's a little bit cooler, but I've got some of that footage, so I have to grab a new puck. I'll be right back. It was a good thing I caught that, so I had to go get another one, and as you can see, this one's not busted, so I'm good to go. But there's arrows in here and you have to pay attention. Burton snowboards have a 3-bolt pattern, which is why these are designed the way they are. On the 3-bolt pattern, you're on this bottom row and this middle row right here, and those 3 compensate for these 3 right here. If you're on a 4-bolt setup on normal snowboards like my wife's and the MLY that I was going to use until I realized I only had 3 screws, I don't like running with 3 screws on a 4-screw board. It's just not, it's to me it's not in, you know. But anyway, you would run down these columns right here and it would make it a lot easier for you. So inside the binding, you have to remember that if you're going to your right, the binding will go positive on the board, and if you go left with the numbers from 0 over to 15, you go left, that will go negative with the binding. Now if you run switch and everything, then 15 negative is perfect, because then you can go directional. Some people run as extreme as like 30-30. So it just depends on what you're doing. This one, I'm going to set the arrow right here. I'm going to make sure that I have that set the way I want it. I'm going to set this arrow in here at 15 degrees, just like that, right there. So that's in at 15 degrees. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this on the board on my most heavily showing ring, just like this. And then I'm going to take one screw at a time, and I'm going to pop it in and give it a little bit of a turn and make sure that it goes in nicely. You don't want to cross thread these, because this is not something that's easily fixed at all. Most of the time, if you strip one of these screws, that port is done. You can't use that port very well anymore. They do, you basically have to put a hole in the bottom of your base and then replace it with kind of like one of those T things, and then the P-Tex over it, and then you're just like, it's like a bite screw. But it's not something that you really want to have, you know, happen. So you make sure these are all going in nice and tight with your fingers. No, you know, not like locking or nothing. You don't want them binding. And then you take your tool and you check it. See, that one kind of seems like it wants to bind, so I'm gonna, whoop, it just set. So there it goes, no binding. All right, cool. So that's set at 15 degrees. So I can tighten that one down, make sure this one, yep, that one's seated properly. Oh, I'm one click off. That adjustment gave me one click off. So I gotta back it off a little bit. You have to pay attention to that. If you notice that I'm one click off of 15, they're that touchy. The notches on these bindings are that touchy, okay? You can be one click off and it'll change everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen these up just a little bit so that it keeps the puck in place. And while the puck is in place, I can rotate my binding one click, which is never really easy. Pull this one up just a wee bit more, and I should be able to give it that one click to line up to 15 again right there. And now I'm going to tighten it back up. Whoops. Oh well, it's not the first time that's ever happened. So. Okay, and here it is. Always grab your bindings, make sure that they're locked in, they're not going to go anywhere, okay? Don't always grab your high backs, grab your actual binding structure and give it some twists, give it some yanks, make sure it's in there safe. But anyway, that's pretty much the 90s stance right there. And my wife's board is set up and ready for her to go ahead and start learning, so I will see you guys later on, and yeah, we'll get some more stuff taken care of and all that. This video is all jumpy, so don't go anywhere. All right, you guys take care. I told you, I don't like to leave people hanging. So this is the same ski boot that I showed you in the other split board setup in that video where I did the whole tuning up and changing the straps on my wife's split board. But this one happens to be the one that's for a snowboard. Now this one's awesome because it locks just like this. As you can see, the boot is locked in just like that with that tensioner system. You flip and you step right out of the boot. And if you notice something, or right out of the binding with the boot, if you notice something, this is one of those really cool Burton's It even has a tensioner system so that you can adjust your boot. So all you do is, like, if you have somebody else that's trying your setup and they're on skis but they know how to snowboard and they can adapt to your stance, all you have to do is just spin the key right here and it will readjust the entire thing so that you can fit a different boot in it. It's also got a DIN setup in the back. This is one of those really high-tech hard boot setups for carving on snowboards and stuff. But I didn't want to leave that out. I figured I'd show it to you. And to go back in, just go back in like that, and then come up and over, and lock. And there it is. You're good to go. But this is experience on snowboards. You will hurt yourself if you try this right off the bat. It takes a while to get used to your board before you even attempt a hard boot, because the hard boot itself changes the entire dynamics of the game, all right? You guys take care.